Citizens of the world, welcome back to another Keep Yours podcast where we have suspended normal programming to take up COVID-19 response, and today we are talking about the CARES Act. And I'm going to make this multiple pieces for different people. First, we're just going to go over what the general CARES Act covers. And there's a lot of information on this out there. I don't think this is a big mystery, so I'm going to go through this quickly so we can get to the next one, which is our decision making around what we do with the CARES Act information that we've gotten. So very quickly, to go over what the CARES Act is basically the government trying to give businesses, self-employed people, unemployed people more money right now while they're not able to work because we're all in quarantine. So the government is trying to prevent people from going on unemployment by doing relief for businesses. And which way that a business goes kind of depends on where you're at and what you're doing. If you've already laid everybody off and you're a movie theater, you're not applying for the payroll protection part of this CARES Act. You're letting them get the excess unemployment because your business is down. You're not going to hire them back for the short term just to lay them off again. They're already laid off. That's what's going to happen. Now, if you're a business who's still employing everybody, this is a really good thing for you. And if you're a business in the middle, then we have some real tough decisions to make. So quickly, let's get into what the CARES Act is. And Holland and Hart put together a great summary, one of the few that I actually enjoyed kind of reading and looking at. I assume there's nothing here because they published all of this. So the biggest part that the CARES Act gives is two things. One, payroll protection loans, which is basically they're going to give 2 months of wages to businesses to keep people employed. So the government is saying, please don't lay off your employees. We know you're going to be down for 2 months. We'll come back. If we can pay people for 2 months, they're not on unemployment. The other thing that they did is give everybody eligibility to unemployment. So you're self-employed, you're a contractor, whatever you're a gig worker, it doesn't matter what it is. If you no longer can work because of this, you are now eligible for unemployment. The big problem with all of these is the rollout, and we'll get to that at the end of this, but first let's just get through what the information is. So, what do we have options for? Payroll protection loan, option number one. This is again for businesses. So businesses that have less than 500 employees can go and apply for these loans, which will then be forgiven. So they start as a loan, then if you use it for what you're supposed to, then it's forgiven. And we're going to get into specifically what the loan amounts are and what can be forgiven. So, gives you eligibility in here, the covered loan period, the use of the loans, what you can pay for it with, certifications, and this is just the beginning. If you're actually going to do the PPP loan, I'm going to do that little snippet here, probably 15 minutes. That one will take a little bit longer. I've just been through all of this, just finally got some more information back from our bank at the end of Friday for additional documentation, so we will go through all of that if that's your decision. So basically what this means is we have some decisions to do. So do we want to forgive salaries and hire people back? Another option is income injury disaster relief loans, and the first part of that is $10,000. That you can get, and that is usually forgiven, but you can't do both. So you can't get an economic income loan and a PPP loan and have both be forgiven. And the quick kind of easy math on that is if you pay yourself more than $5,000 a month, the PPP loan is going to be a better option for you. If you pay yourself less than $5,000 a month, then getting $10,000 from the economic injury disaster relief loan might be a better option for you because that's more money. So we'll get into decision making on the next podcast, which is coming up right after this one. We're just going to tie them all together. I'm trying to make these short snippets so people can get this. So this is all about the loans and loan particulars. The other big thing that the CARES Act included is the ability for people to get unemployment. So I'm going to go directly to the CARES Act. And you can pull this. This is literally the act from Congress that we pulled down. I have bookmarked this so that we can easily reference it. So, payroll protection program. This is the first one that we're talking about. What is it? It is literally a government giving businesses money so that they can keep making payroll. That's the idea behind it. If that's you, if you're going to keep people on payroll, want to keep going, this is a very good program for all of us. Okay, so how do we determine how much money we can borrow? gross payroll wages, plus healthcare premiums, plus retirement benefits, plus any state taxes we paid, up to a maximum of $100,000. So one of the other, if you're doing the PPP, if you're going to go this route, next podcast, I'll show you the worksheet of what I've created to make sure that you get the right calculation. Independent contractors. This was a big contention because originally this says right here, the sum of payments to any independent contractor can be included. The problem with this is independent contractors can file on their own, so now you have double dipping. If I'm the business and I have an independent contractor, I pay him. I get a loan from the government. He can now go get the same loan for his business, and he gets that forgiven, and I get mine forgiven, and now all of a sudden there's two forgivenesses for the same person. So to eliminate that, when they brought out their final rules, and I know I'm going through things here very quickly, but that's kind of the idea. A lot of this information's out there. People have had a week to absorb it, but you can also go back and bookmark these things. So here's the specifics off of the SBA's final rules. Do independent contractors count as employees for the purposes of a PPP loan? Their final thing that they brought out, well, this is from late Thursday night, is the answer is no. So basically what they're going to give you is your employees. Okay, the next question is, how do I know if I'm an independent contractor and applying for this on the April 10th date, or if I'm a business and I'm eligible to apply as of Friday, which of course none of the banks were accepting applications except for B of A pretending to. So when am I eligible? Here's how you can define that. Here's the practical part that no one's just discussed and said this is how we're going to define it, which they just should have. Makes it easier. If you file a 941 every quarter, and if you file a W-3 at the end of the year, then you're an employer. Otherwise, you're an independent contractor who gets a 1099 and has a Schedule C typically, or you're self-employed, which means you may get some 1099s and you may get some income, but you have income in your own business, right? My wife, for example, she sells jewelry. Well, she doesn't get a 1099 from the individual people she sells the jewelry to. So how are we gonna know? Well, there's going to be a bit more in requirements, right? And we'll get into that in the next podcast of what are the requirements if I'm into self-employed, if I'm an independent contractor. And the reality is they don't know yet. But if you're an employer, you've got a 941 you filed for each quarter, you have a W-3 from the end of the year. These are documents that can verify what you put in. So independent contractors file on their own. The other thing, here's what you can use the loan amounts for. And here's how we get to that calculation. So we take our payroll costs up to a maximum of $100,000. So the easiest way to do this is just take 2019 numbers. Take your 2019 numbers of everything you paid for, salaries, anything wages, anything retirement benefits, anything healthcare premiums, state unemployment taxes. Sometimes there's a head tax or individual tax put on the employer by the state. You can use those as well. You take all of that up to a maximum of $100,000 per employee. If you use 2019 numbers, divide by 12. That's your monthly number. Multiply that times 2.5. That's your maximum loan amount. Again, all of this is in here, and if you're going to do the PPP, I'm going to do one specifically on what you're going to need and how you're going to do that. Allowable uses. So you can use it to pay payroll, you can use it to pay rent, you can use it to pay interest, you can use it to pay utilities. So what they're basically saying is take 2 months of your expenses, government's going to pay for it, so we can keep this all moving. The other thing that this really did is unemployment. This makes everybody eligible for unemployment. This makes this the decision making. What do I do? Is it better for me to go on unemployment, or is it better for me to file for one of these loan things? And that's going to depend on the amount of money that you made last year. And we get into this, basically I can get 2.5 months of wages, or I can get $10,000 on an EIDL loan, or I can get unemployment. Now, you may be able to get unemployment later in terms of the next 2 months PPP loan. Okay, that gets everyone 2 months, right? I can go ask for forgiveness because I paid people for these 2 months. If this goes on longer than 2 months, then can I put people back on unemployment and that doesn't hurt me? The way this is written is you get reimbursed for money you spend over the next 8 weeks after you receive this loan. So as long as you keep everyone employed for the next 8 weeks, you're eligible for the loan forgiveness. Then you could, in theory, put people on unemployment after that. The idea is, let's prevent people from going on unemployment today, and hopefully in 60 days, we don't have to go on unemployment anymore. Hopefully these people are back to work. How that actually works out, we don't know. None of us know. The uncertainty around this is huge. And the uncertainty about all of this program for the bank. Okay, so assume that almost all of us are eligible for one of these things. Now, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is a huge exercise in patience. As we all found out Friday, when, despite the fact that Treasury Secretary Mnuchin decided to tweet out that the program's live and going, every single bank site was down. Nope, not accepting applications. And the reason for this is the system's not set up for this. The SBA typically does, $25 billion a year in loans. Now it's going to do $400 billion, so 15 times the amount. And instead of having a year to do it, it's supposed to do it in a couple of weeks. That's a crazy ask. And so the banks are going, well, how do we know that the federal government's going to back the loans we give? What is required for us for documentation? Can we sell these loans? What else can we do? So the first people that are going to be able to get these loans are people who have an existing banking relationship and already have loans. Why? Because if you go to apply for a loan from a bank, it is a process. Let me tell you, been through this too many times, and I understand what the process is, but it's verify, re-verify, triple check, quadruple check, ask for any other information you might possibly be able to get, and verify that 19 more times across the board. So we have to verify that people actually exist, that the entities exist, that the borrow information that we've got is correct. They have to validate all this information. If you're brand new and walk in off the street, that takes them a long time to do. So the reason that the banks are going to process their existing customers first is that, one, it makes sense because they're in the system. Two, if they don't process their existing customers first, those are not going to be existing customers for very long. We're all going to be pissed off small business owners. We're already worried because of the way the law was written that there's a certain amount of money. And if we don't get in line first, then we're not going to get there. So basically what you're seeing for all small businesses is the effect of what you saw at toilet paper at Walmart over the past 4 weeks. There might be some, there should be plenty for everybody, but right now it is panic across the board, including me. This has run my blood pressure up for the last week. I'm sure you can already tell. I'm wired right now because of all of this. I'm ready for the decompression when they say your loan application has been accepted. Then we can all go, ah. And I'm ready for that. As are almost all small business owners, and everyone's freaking out right now. So I'm trying to help people with understanding why you're freaking out, what the bank is doing, and why. And why also, if you're an independent contractor, self-employed, you're going to be down the road on this. You're going to be a week or two later because they have to figure out what documentation they're going to need from you to make sure that this works. Now, if you're on the other side, if you're eligible for unemployment, now, if you're not working because of COVID-19, you're now eligible for unemployment. Again, the same problem that we have in the loan market, we have on the unemployment market, which is the states are not set up to do this. You just gave a state system, which has been in place for decades, that says if you're self-employed, you're not eligible. If you get fired, you're not eligible. There's a lot of ineligibility, right? Now all of a sudden, everyone's eligible. Well, how do we know how much they should get? Because previously, for every unemployment office, it was what the employer pays you, a certain percentage up to a maximum amount. Now you're self-employed. What does that mean? And how many months a year do you work? So now you're unemployed, and for how much, and what do we get, right? And so the state themselves have to figure that out. But the real holdup for the states, one, implementing that system. That's not a joke, all right? And already the unemployment system is inundated. 6.6 million people filed in a week. That's the most ever. Everyone's complaining they can't get a hold of people. They have the same problem the SBA has. Not enough people to process a number of accounts that up until recently were not very high. So you go from, I think we're seeing 100,000 unemployment claims per week before, and now we're at 6.6 million in a week. There's no way any system can keep up. So they have to keep up with who's filing for unemployment. They have to develop a new system to figure out how to calculate what they're going to pay people. And then they're waiting for the federal government to give them the money so that the next piece of this is, hey, we got to change our system to 39 weeks because it previously was less, and we've got to add in this extra $600, which is right here, additional $600. So none of these things are built into the systems. So everyone needs to be patient, figure out. Okay, that's what the CARES Act is. You also have an economic income disaster relief loan, which cannot be used for the same thing as the PPP loan, right? And then you have unemployment. These are basically our three branches right now. In 5 minutes, I'm going to come back and record a separate one about what's your best strategy. How does this work? So thanks for listening. Hopefully this all makes sense to you and wraps it up in a nice easy pie. It is fairly complicated, 800 pages of rules for everyone to figure out. It's been going at lightning speed for a week, so we're all finally just starting to get our hands around little pieces of this as the government comes out with additional info, such as the independent contractor stuff. So bear with us, right? We're all trying to figure this out together, and we'll get there. But the delays in payments, I know, are painful for a lot of people. There's anxiety in the business world. I'm living it with you. I'm trying to get loans for my businesses as well. So I'm very familiar with what the process looks like. And if you're going to go through that PPP process, I'm going to do another one for you right after this. So next one will be, hey, what do I need to, what does my decision making look like? So thanks for listening. Please share this with your friends. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our page, help us out. This is all free info for people. I really do this on the side because I want to help people, and we want to get this message out there of reliable information that people can go to, where I'm not doing this for any monetary gains whatsoever. So please share, please pass it along, please repost our links when we post them. Please help us out so that we can continue to help you and our friends in this community. So thanks for listening. Catch you next time.